Should be topic number one tonight says, does the black man in 2023 still think like this? This came with a link that takes us to YouTube. 5-minute video. We'll watch it and then we'll discuss it.
The only thing black people value, really, because we've been trained, is what? Impressing other black people. That's as far collectively as our thoughts go. Truth be told, that's a painful truth. But we got to make a priority, replace the system of white supremacy with justice. That has to be the priority. We got to get out of what we call that whole thing about black culture, because black culture is about one thing. If we tell the truth, look at it. Just don't believe what I'm saying. Just look at what we actually do. Once we get just a few steps ahead, just like little children playing with toys in Toyland, we run around trying to impress each other. That's like slaves rattling their chains at the bottom of the ship, saying, my chains are shinier than yours, telling the other slave that. And sometimes get into a bragging thing that leads to an argument. And there they are banging each other over the head with their chains. And we are still in that state of mind in 2016, worldwide, truth be told. We don't have any ambition that goes beyond one black person trying to impress another black person any way that we can, including just going in and shooting up the place. That makes an impression. I killed him. I killed a whole bunch of black guys over there in the bar tonight, and I got away. Ha, ha, ha. Hooray for me. Now I got a reputation around the hood. That's as far as our minds go. And in business, the same thing. In every area of activity. You don't know nothing. I know everything. How many times do you hear that in a black barber shop? Oh man, you don't know nothing. I've been to New York. I've been to Paris. You don't know what I know. One Negro showing off to another Negro. Black people making a priority for their entire lives of showing off their shiny chains that were put on them by the white supremacists to other black people and calling it life. That's what my life is all about. I was able to impress a few of my so-called friends and a few people who didn't know me, who got to know me now, and they are all black, and they are impressed with my so-called progress, and hooray for me. I have arrived in heaven on earth. Truth be told, that is as far as our ambition goes. And the white supremacists look at this little childish stuff and say, Negroes forever. I got them right where I want them. Because our ambition is to conquer the entire universe, if we can, and everything in it. And if there are 50,000 universes out there, we're going to conquer them too. Even if there's nobody on those planets, we'll just call them ours anyway. Why? Because we are super people. We don't have shallow minds. We don't have shallow goals. A Negro, all he wants to do is strut up and down the block and show off the little things that I allowed him to have, show these things off to some other downtrodden Negro and say, I'm better than you. And that's good enough for me. Now, some people have said they've seen some cartoons of my work on the internet that have been presented, and that it pretty well embellishes what I have been trying to say in my textbooks. That it does that, well, that has been, from what I understand, some people reported to me, a plus. Because they didn't understand what I had written very well, but when they saw those cartoons that just repeated what I was saying and attaching my name to it, and came right out of the book. The material did. They say that they better understood it, and I can understand that because people are kind of visual, particularly in the year 2021 now, more visual than ever.
So, I know that Neely Fuller is not particularly liked, but what I'd like to do tonight, though, like, for example, KW7, shout out to him too, by the way. Thanks for coming through. He says Neely Fuller Jr. is a multiracial male who is not African-centered, which I agree with. He doesn't have a vision to win the game, and I agree with that too. But what I like to do sometimes in my own personal thing is sometimes I like to look at the whole animal, right? Not just the parts I don't like. And by that I mean, there's the old saying, chew the meat, spit out the bone type thing. Is Neely Fuller's analysis, whether you think he's the way to go or not, is Neely Fuller's analysis, is he wrong though? Is he wrong though? And so when we respond to this, let's take on the activity of let's analyze this just based on what he's talking about, what's depicted, etc. Is he wrong? All right. That's my challenge to all of us here tonight for this first prompt. So with that said, shout out to Ben Uko out there in the chat. With that said, Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, does the black man in 2023 still think like this? Black Steel, do you think the black man in 2023 still thinks like this?
Well, no, I don't. If I'm honest with you, I don't think Neely Fuller, what he really articulated was a very pessimistic view of how Black people relate to one another. And I think it's also devoid of a real analysis. And I think that we can't really analyze, we can't really understand Black people's behavior unless we really understand what was done to us. I don't believe some of the things he was saying almost made it sound like we were just innately these things. These things were just this is just what we were. You know, we just have to impress each other. I mean, Black people are human beings. Human beings strive to impress other human beings. I don't think this behavior is particular to African people at all. But I really do feel like his assessment of us was really, look at these sorry niggas, look at these Black people, they're doing this or doing that. And it's just, to me, I don't really see where he's supporting any positive images or ideas about African people or even understanding our struggle. And I understand why people do have issues with Fuller, because his compensatory code was really just a way to showing Black people how to move within a white supremacist dominated society, as opposed to challenging that white supremacist dominated society, overthrowing it. It almost felt like he was a believer in the innate inferiority of African people. So I think there are some Black people who think like this, yes, but there are there's so many of us who have different views, different ideas, um, relate to one another, who believe um, in the struggle. But so to me, I feel like it's really, as far as I can say, I think there are some of us who think like that, but I don't think it's all or even most. Um, then we have to come up with a way to challenge those of us who think like this. We don't need any more Charleston whites running around talking about how fucked up Black people are. White people don't treat us the way they do because we're fucked up. They do it because they're fucked up. So I'll let somebody else have the mic. Thank you, Coco.
Thanks for that, Black Steel. I'm glad you brought up too. I think I have problems with Charleston White because I find him to be anti-continental African. So I do have issues with him. But But I think this goes to the general kind of discussions that happen here and in other parts of the internet, I guess, of, we got to be, at least in my humble opinion, we got to be honest about some of the nonsense that goes on within our community. It's not everybody, but it's enough people. It's too much people who's on some ignorant shit. If we're gonna keep it real, and I think Charleston White a lot of times, like he said something in his recent Cam Newton interview. I don't know if you guys saw it, so I don't want to just talk about something you guys don't know what I'm talking about. But he said something. Cam Newton said, "Well, it's your delivery when you're talking about these ills in black society," and he is like, "Don't condemn my delivery. Y'all don't condemn the delivery of the rapper who's calling everyone bitches and hoes and who's talking about killing other black men and stuff like that. Like y'all don't talk about that delivery. Why don't y'all deal with that?" You know what I mean? So I do think we have problems. And peace to Brother Bakari out there. Peace to Erzuliism and Sister Raw. I do think it's healthy to talk about the things that ill our society. I also think it's healthy and healthier, perhaps, to talk about how we're going to get out of this situation. So, that's kind of where I stand with that, Black Steel. But let me hear what Oni has to say. Oni, what say you?
Oh yes, nearly fuller. Was he right about black man in 22? But my thing is this: what's the wrong with trying to impress other black people? Like, I don't like, I don't get it.
No,
White
no,
folks.
no, no, no. Hold on, Oni. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I saw Trigger Happy say that, and shout out to Trigger Happy. He said that in the chat too. We should. He said something along the lines of, "We should want to impress each other," but it's impress each other with what though, and impress each other how, right? Why don't we impress each other with positive works and coming up with solutions to this fucked up situation we in? Why are we impressing each other with how much women we could pull and trinkets and shit like that? So I think that's important to kind of point that out. But go ahead on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like even when you say that, right? Like we have to also think of like if you were in that experience. You know what I mean? Like if I was in a certain, like for instance, how did I try to impress my um like my the people I knew growing up, right? So I, for what it's worth, grew up in the school. You know what I mean? So I tried to impress people by getting good grades. But what if I didn't grow up in the school? Would I still try to impress people by getting good grades? You know what I mean? And it falls back to you know human beings are well, I say we're animals, but we're animals that are in these environments, and of course, you can appreciate as a biologist, but you say to yourself, what if there aren't good schools? What if the schools are deficient? What if there are unfortunately gangs in these areas? Like what do you expect? Like I understand the idea that, hey, you know what, as a black person you should just keep your distance. You should just keep your distance from everybody and anybody negative. But like realistically, that's not like I don't see it. I used to do there's this area in, I think, Brownsville. Yeah, in Brownsville, I used to go down there to do some organizing and stuff. And so we would put in petitions for an event, and like, yeah, there were kids standing outside watching our every move, reporting it to the older people in the community, right? And they're watching our move. They're kind of participating without participating in the drug trafficking going on, right? And I'm just putting up flyers, and they're tearing down my flyers and all that kind of stuff. But my point being that, yeah, if that's the environment that I grew up in, right? That's what I'm going to do. And the same as, you guys are, some of you guys are in the Caribbean, and also like when I was in Africa, like the little boys outside, what were they doing to impress each other? They were riding bikes and playing soccer, you know. But do we have soccer? Are we playing? And I know that in the Caribbean you guys play football, that kind of stuff. So it's like, are you, what institutions are we giving these young folk for us to, because, sorry, what I mean is that everybody is trying to impress the other person, but you have to look at them in the context that they exist in. If the context is you have no schools or your schools suck, there's a lot of violence going around, the police are a constant presence that's bringing drugs in, that kind of stuff. I get the idea, hey, you know what? Everybody should just automatically work, fight against this, instinctively, just fight against the system blindly, instinctively, but it's not realistic. you know I could say, like I said, I could look back and say, oh yeah, I tried to get good grades because I was in the school, like that was my whole social existence. I had no social existence uh on my way to school. My neighbors were a bunch of, like my neighbors never interacted with me, never engaged with me. So I had none of that. You know what I mean? But that's not the same circumstance that a lot of these young people that we're talking about are in. So yeah, you could criticize them and say, well, why is it that you're engaging your neighbors who are engaging you? But that's what everybody does. And I could say, I mean, I know I said I never had any engagement, but like even I played with the, like once upon a time we did play with the neighbors and so on and so forth, or we did try to find friends in the local area. Everybody tries to do that. It's just unfortunate when your area is not safe, and a part of the reason why it's not safe is because it's a damn police state, and the police are not trying to make you safe. And I'm not saying that the blame isn't on black people. I'm not going full Black Steel, right? But what I'm saying is that yeah, we as a people, like it's easy, like it doesn't make sense to, I mean, if you're not involved in that area, like if you're not organizing on that land, and if you have no solution for them, then you can't just step back and criticize them, because there's no realistic there's no realistic reason why it should be that much better. You know, it's not gonna be, that everybody in a dangerous ass area where people are like this lady was like, I tell you guys the story sometimes. This lady was, she wanted to go back to the shelter because she felt like the housing situation was unsafe, because the apartment next door had people coming out shooting at the apartment, shooting at the other apartment or something like that. So like two apartments were fighting, like warring factions, and they're just fighting because they live in different apartments. That kind of bullshit. Like if you're not going to fix that situation, and very unlikely that you can, right? But if you're not going to fix that situation, then it's like, as long as they're not shooting each other, like it's a win, you know. And you got to just turn your eye to where you can solve problems. But like this whole, well, I'm going to look at this one situation, these two areas, these two districts, and say this is how all black people do it. That's not true. But again, as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly normal to be in a situation and then try to flex with your own people, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's just bad with being in that area, but again, if you didn't make the area and if you don't try to fix the area, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, but who? See, this is the issue. This is my issue. I'll be. What? This is the moment for me to kind of throw up my hands and tell you guys something. I'll be honest with you. This situation that we're in, and the fact that we can't really come to any kind of consensus, it seems, when we have these types of conversations, it giving up and just focusing on my own shit.
Wait,
Because
out.
because listen, how are things gonna get better if you just chalk it up to it is what it is. Like at some point, there's the things that we cannot control, but there's the things that we can control. Gunning down a dude, right, for shits and giggles, oftentimes is gunning down a dude for shits and giggles. It really is not the way, man. You know, young women running around thoughting it up skeezers, that's really not the way, man. And what I hear a lot of times in the conscious space, in fact, I hear that right here on Shoot the Breeze a lot of times, is like, just bury your head in the dirt, ignore the ills around, and somehow, this minority of conscious people in this community will fix this situation. We'll get it together and we'll fix it. How? It doesn't make sense. So while I'm not the biggest Neely Fuller fan, because like KW Don 7 others said, this dude is not African centered. He doesn't talk about Africa. He's not African centered. He's really on some, move this way. And in some ways, I even don't disagree with him on that. Move this way. You're in a police state. You're not in your own nations. This is what it is. Move a certain way so you could survive the day, etc. I don't see the issue with that. And I don't see the issue with, we got to really do better. Like our folks, I'm not saying it's all of us, of course, but there's too many of us on the nonsense. And there's too many of us on the nonsense in such a way where it starts to influence the younger of us who are coming up. Let me go to Buana. Buana, what's it?
Okay, so I listen to everyone, and let me just first start by saying this. Black Steel started a discussion in a positive note, and it made me think for a minute. He said that it's not been his experience in being around men who think this way. And I'm thinking, he said that if these men that exist, they're really in a minority. So I thought about that. I'm like, wow. I'm like, maybe I need to change the people who I am around, because if that's been his experience, maybe he's around a different kind of thinking man that he didn't have to encounter men like these. Who Neely Fuller was talking about. And I'm gonna talk about the context in which Neely Fuller was talking in a minute. But it makes me really start to think to myself, maybe I need to get around a group of different kinds of men. But I live in a black country. But I understand the country that I live in are full of colonized people. A colonized black man is gonna think differently from a free thinking black man. We talking about two different scenarios. So a colonized black man, he does not see another black man as his counterpart or as his brother. He sees it as his natural enemy, or someone who he needs to conquer over and dominate over, prove that person is inferior to him. A colonized black man or minded individual does not think like a free thinking black man. And in the context of Neely Fuller, is as if we are at the bottom of the slave ship arguing over who have the better chain while we on a slave ship. We forget that fact. So in that scenario, I'm saying that the question is asked, well, why would we want to impress one another? That is a natural thing. We are close to one another. Why we want to impress one another? Well, if I exist in a space where I see myself as in a competition, like Brother Bakari used to like to talk about competition. And in a competition that I am in, the people who look like me, we are at the bottom. We are running the race last, right? Everyone who comes into that territory, the Chinese man, the Asian man, and every other group, right? They're running ahead of us, way ahead of us, economically, technologically, etc., etc., etc. My thing that would impress me wouldn't necessarily to be faster than running faster than a person who look just like me because both of us are running lives. What is impressive to me is to beat the person who is at the head of the race, who's winning and running off with the race. So I wouldn't try to struggle and fight to impress someone, who look just like me and who in the same condition. The impression gonna be, the competition gonna be with the person who's ahead of me. So if the Arab man or the Asian man is doing better than me, what is impressive to me is to do better than him. My race is against him. That's the competition that I'm in. And I feel like sometimes we forget the competition that we are in as a group of people. And I think that we engage in the just the drudgeries are ridiculous things. Who have the bigger haircut? Who have the nicer car? Who have the nice Jordans? Who could pull this girl? Who could pull that girl? While these other groups coming into our territories and getting away with the rest of the world, the whole environment, they take it everything. They take it the whole earth while we arguing about who have the best Jordans. I think that the context of what he was saying is that we should be minded to think beyond these limitations that colonized people think within, these little small boxes that the colonized mind think within. We should think a little bit greater outside of that experience. And I think that his experience is he's encountered men like this at this base level. And his thinking is to go beyond that experience, go beyond the experience of a colonized minded individual and start thinking like a free man. A free man if he gonna see the environment for what it is, and he gonna try to prevail over that environment and prevail over the competitors within that environment. Not necessarily people who just look like him, but other groups of people who are dominating in his environment, who doing better than he is. And I think that this is important. I think that this is important within the discussion itself. And it's not to ignore it, because I don't want to be dismissive of brothers and experience. If that's what the brothers and experience, that's a great thing. Because I would want to climb up to that and encounter these kinds of individuals. But it has not necessarily been my experience, Koku, nor yours, nor some of the other brothers. And maybe we need to change the company of people that we in. Who knows? But I think that our competition really is the people who are doing better than us. I give a damn if I can impress a man who could do the same thing I could do. No, let me see if I can buy a $500 million. My competitor is Elon Musk. People will listen to that and laugh. You know what I mean? That's who my competitor is. I'm trying to outdo him. But needless to say, man, I'll stop there and let the brothers go.
Appreciate that. Buana. Let's welcome in Ben Uko this week. Ben, how are you?
I'm very, very good. How you doing?
Very good, very good. Ben, you heard everything everyone had to say. What say you to everything?
Yeah, I think what we have to. Can you go on 1 second? Let me turn something. Let me pause them.
Ben ain't easy. Ben,
No, I'm here. I need to turn something down. So
all
we're
right.
good. We're good. So let's break this down in the terms. First of all, let's understand Charleston White. That dude is very suspect. People gotta understand. These guys, these stars are like these are social. These are people. These are social media stars. They're not real stars because they're not in the streets. So like Charleston White, he's not in the streets, so he's not real. He might be on shows that we have to talk about him, but these are not real life situation street guys. These are social media mouthpieces. Let's get that first point out of the way. Second point is, does the black man still think like this? Yes and no. You gotta know the right crowd, the right group of people, the right crowd and stuff. So like so if you're gonna focus on the dusty crowd, yeah. If you're gonna think about productive men and women, single or married, black people, no, that's not all black people on that. So people should be really real, be real more realistic with that. But again, it's like it's just like let's look at the case that just everyone was talking about this week. My competitor is the NBA. I want to see us win. I want to see us win. They saw what they did with the Josh Giddey situation, where they covered it up. They covered up the evidence, and some of the black men complain. Well, rightly so. We have a right to complain, but I want to see the next step. How do I beat my competitor, which is the NBA? I want to see systems that built into bettering us as a black man. I don't want to integrate it. I want to empower myself and find a way to win. And that's the goal of it. And I yield the mic.
Appreciate that, Ben. Thanks for coming through. Hang around with us for a bit. Let's welcome in our brother who was on earlier this evening, Brother Bakari. How are you this week?
I'm great, man. Can y'all hear me?
You're very low.
Yeah, what's up, Bakari?
What's going on, everybody? What's going on in the chat? Now, I did not hear the video. I don't listen to. I really don't listen to Neely Fuller. He really has nothing to offer me. The stuff like when I heard Bawana say something about Black Steel, saying about he was never around people like that. I was never around any elder people talking about what you can't do because white people is so strong and they're white. That's why I don't buy into the white supremacy thing. I'm being honest. I never truly heard that my whole life. I was around people that actually built stuff. He really have nothing to offer. Not me. I ain't gonna say nobody, but not me. When you talk about Charleston White is he's a YouTube buffoon, and I don't listen to Charleston White. Charleston White is funny. He's a comedian. But on the flip side of that, they showed Charleston White one time actually doing one of his lectures actually out in the street working with the youth for real, and actually showed a couple of them. If he's actually out working with the youth for real, what he talk about, he don't speak like that. The way he speak on YouTube, he don't. It didn't don't even sound like the same person. But he even say what he do on YouTube is for shock value. But I don't listen. I don't really listen to Charleston White either. Now, is it okay to critique some of the ills in our community? Yes. But you know me, I always go to the flip side of that. We always critique the ills, but we never talk about the positive or any of the good things that black people do. That is always put to the back, on the back burner. And when we talk about competition, we don't understand that the whole world is in competition with us. But we are only in competition with us. We're not in competition with everybody else. Even when I was doing my live today, everybody kept going to white folks. I always had to bring it back. No, it's everybody. And everybody gonna always stray back to, well, white people, and voice their hate for white people, in which, that's, I don't care how people, I don't really have to do that. I just say I love I love black people, right? But we always gonna go back to white people. But it's the whole world. Even when I when I was mentioning what young Jeezy White said, and you're talking about competition, how black and Asian people work together, she see Asian businesses and black communities and black people supporting. She see black people inside of Asian neighborhoods and Asian communities around this country supporting the Asians. And that's our relationship. But we still take it back to white people because we don't understand how everybody is in competition with us, and the stuff that we allow to happen in our neighborhood, no one else will allow it to happen. We can't go into Enrique's neighborhood and get the landscaping job, because Enrique family and Enrique people is going to only hire those Enriques. We allow it. And yes, do I mention it? Yes. But and that's nothing that, I don't know why. I have an idea why it's that way. A lot of it, disdain that we have for ourselves. It's just certain things we can mention, and we can hear how a lot of black people react when you mention certain black circles, even mentioning black business. A lot of times we act as we have never had a positive experience with a black business. We always have to let the negative overshadow the positive. And for me, I think that's part of it too. Is there solutions? Yes, there's solutions. For me, the first solution is shit. Look in the mirror and love yourself. That's the first solution. You start loving the people and want to be around the people that's like you. Love yourself. That's the first solution when it comes to building. I would also say for me, the second solution for me is to get out of that damn whites are constantly calling white people supreme. Every word have a definition. Everything have a definition. So if we constantly calling somebody supreme, our subconscious tell us we can't compete with these people. So constantly calling them supreme, we stay stagnant because when we mention that's part of the reason why when we meant everything is going to return and make everything our fault because we have the supreme superior people walking around on earth. And if we say, well, you know, what about the white supremacists? Who gives a shit? What about black power? Do we understand what black power is? Do we understand that? Why aren't we working toward that? Why aren't we trying to unify under that banner and create real black power? Now, for me, that's just a couple of solutions. Like I said, I didn't hear the video. I'm just piggybacking off of some of the things that I heard some people say. On that, I hear the mic.
Yeah, Bakari, thank you for that. I had posted the link for the video in the chat. You probably didn't see it. But Bakari, I'm going to give you this analogy because I know you enough. I know Buana, Black Steel, Azuli, and others here who like boxing. If I go into the boxing ring with my opponent and my opponent leaves his ribs exposed, I'm going to work the body, pause, so to speak, right? I'm going to work those ribs. Why? Why do I say that? The reason why we talk about, not we here necessarily, but inclusive of us as well. The reason why we talk about the ills or the negatives is because it constantly happens. This stuff constantly happens. If black folks will tighten up on those behaviors, all someone like me could ever talk about is the positivity. But it's rampant. You could go from Brownsville, Brooklyn. You could go to Crown Heights. You could come down here in Flatbush. You could go to, I'm sure you could go to Jacksonville. You could go to Mississippi, wherever. I'm damn sure you could go to the Grove in Nassau, and you're going to find a lot of the nonsense over, and or the only thing that will change is the location and maybe the accent. But over and over and over. My thing is, if we don't talk about these things, how do we create a standard to stay above this type of constant behavior? Now, to be clear, I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, we could eradicate all of this stuff completely. I know that's not true. But what we can do is limit this shit to a small minority within our group and make it something that our children don't aspire to do. And that's the issue that I have. We're not dealing with it. We're just saying, oh, it is what it is. As opposed to us talk about, really and truly, this shit here, how long we've been seeing this now? How about we come up with some ways to get ourselves organized, to get our minds in the right space, to really cut down and curtail some of this stuff. That's my big issue.
So if I can add something to conclude when you get a chance.
Go ahead now. You can go ahead.
So I would say, number one, I would say this. I think many times when we say we should do something, but I think, first of all, we have to realize that many of us have different goals in mind, right? So since we have different goals in mind, we're not all going to come to the same things we need to do. Some people have the goal of integration. Some people have the goal of revolution. Some people have the goal of, getting to having more access or, other things like that. So I think many times we have different goals, but I think that if we really look at our situation, honestly, as African people, not just in the West, but globally, I think we really have to do a really thorough understanding of what brought us to this condition. I think that many times when we have the situation, I understand the name of the show is Bitter Medicine, and the medicine may not taste good, but you need to take it for your well-being. I think that many times we don't really understand and have a true knowledge of what caused us to be in this position. Black people's status in this world, our condition in the world, is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to change it. And I think many times we don't really know how we got it in where we are today. We many times we take the blame on each other. We attack each other. Well, you niggas not doing this, or you guys not doing this, or you guys aren't doing this, and this is, but we really don't understand and come to terms with we are dealing with a pathological enemy. So like Bakari said, they're not supreme. They're definitely not. White people are pathological. They've committed genocide on every inhabited landmass on earth. This is not the actions of a supreme being. These are the actions of a pathological being, of someone with a deep psychosis. But I think that we really have to come to terms with, how did we get in this position? How is it that 15 million Africans, 20 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic as slaves? How is it that our motherland is still colonized and its resources are stolen by the Europeans? Once we come to a true understanding of that, without the bullshit, because we got the pretendians out there, we got the people who want to come up with make believe and the Moors and all the other bull crap. Once we come with a true understanding, then we can act to come up with some real solutions. But I think we really don't. We really need to come to terms with how we got in this situation in the first place, and that's because we're dealing with the pathological enemy. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, Black Steel, I'll be honest with you. If you notice, me personally, I don't even talk about white supremacy. For me to bring up that term, I'm repeating something like within context of something else. I'm reading a paper or a book or something, but I don't even talk about, because the idea that these people are supreme to me is just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. I know some of our people subscribe to that, but for me personally, absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't even register to me. Right? I know that we do a lot of positive things in the community. And Bakari is right. We should try to talk about those things a bit more. But the way I look at it personally, if people are doing good things out there, let them keep doing the good things. I applaud you. I encourage you. It's the people who are doing the things that are anti to those good things. I think it was it Oni who had said it? Someone had said one time that they knew of a guy who, no, I think it might have been something I was talking about. A guy bought computers to put into a little recreation type center thing. Motherfucker stole the computers after the first night. This is the problem I'm talking about. You know how hard those resources are to come by to buy a half dozen or a dozen computers to try help, kids around the way work on their computer literacy, work on their homework, this, that, and the other, improve upon themselves. And motherfuckers just come through, break in, and steal all of it. This is the kind of shit I cannot stand. And me personally, just me personally, I cannot sit up talking about it is what it is. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts?
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, to piggyback on what you just said, that reminded me of the church. F. Keith Flowers, right? Bawana know who he is. I don't know if y'all can check him out. But anyway, they have a community guard, and they give out groceries to the whole community 3 days a week from this church. They can get what they want from the community guard, and then they can go in there. They have a food pantry, which they give groceries to everybody in the community. Somebody waited for their food truck to come one day, and yes, I did talk about this, and it pissed me off. Somebody waited for their food truck to come. They put it in. They went in and stole everything out of the food pantry. And when I'm saying in the community, they probably feeding about 4 blocks of people. They can come and get groceries 3 days a week. Their community garden is for 3-4 blocks of people. Somebody can, and you're right. It does piss you off. It absolutely pisses me off. When you see somebody like you just said, those resources are hard to come by. Some people can afford to even go get groceries. But it didn't make a difference. They never asked. This is what we had. They had chicken, they had bread, the cereal, they have eggs, stuff like that. So people can come through and they can get. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And and I understand exactly what you're saying about when they stole those computers. Some people came in and stole those groceries, and those resources are hard to come by. But like Carl said, it's not our fault that we're in this position, but it's our responsibility to fix us. And I'm going to say it like this: when I say pound the pavement, I think sometimes that's what we're going to have to do. I'm not just saying we're going to go out there and we're going to change everybody. Sometimes I think that's what we have to do. We have to get out there and talk to some of our people, especially some of our younger people. I don't think they're as bad as people think.
Bakari, your volume is real low and muffled at this point. But go ahead. Try finish.
Okay, go ahead. Well, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna go off and come back on.
Well, it's better now. So finish your point now.
No, I was saying I think that's when I say we need to get in the streets sometime. Not that we're gonna just go out there and change everybody and we have to deal with the youth, but I think that's part of it is getting in the street, pounding the pavement, talking to some of our people. We shouldn't be afraid to go in our community when those white mamas will get on a bicycle and ride around and knock everybody down though. On that, look, I'm eating, so I ain't gonna talk for a minute. Probably gonna go off because I ain't ate dinner and I'm eating now, so I'm gonna be listening.
All right, do your thing. Thanks for coming through.
But I plan to come back after I finish, though.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else want to offer any last thoughts on this?
Yeah. So what I was saying was, did
I cut you off before? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you didn't cut me off. Well, actually, I think you did, but that was a minute ago. No, you didn't cut me off. But that's the thing. So we have to be honest with ourselves, and so Neely Fuller Jr., say what you will, this guy is like, white people are this, they're that, they're so good, they're this, blah blah blah. Not they're so good, but they're so powerful, blah blah blah. He's wrong about the world, but he's right about America. And I think that we have to come to terms with that. You're going to, if you do not manage the security of your own country, if you don't manage the security of your space, forget it. You missed out on the fundamentals. That's why I personally, because like I one time a long time ago I was an optimist, and I met this dude who's a pessimist, and he's like, you'll see one day. And I'm like, nah, I'll never be pessimistic, right? But like, yeah, I'm not necessarily pessimistic, but what I could say is that you don't see that, this shit in Africa. Okay? I don't want to say Africa. I didn't see this where I was in Tanzania. Okay? Maybe you'll find this somewhere in Africa, sure, but I did not find this where I was in Tanzania. And that's what it really comes to. Like, you have to take into account humans or animals, and there's an ecological factor. If you do not get the ecological factor here is that you're in somebody else's nation, and whatever they want goes, and this is what they want. Because when we start talking about solutions, a lot of people are sitting in prisons because of solutions. Okay? And none of us are visiting them. You understand? So I can tell you about this one sister. In fact, she used to date Khalid Muhammad, apparently. But I can tell you about this one sister who she was trying to teach, like, she was just teaching these black kids self-respect. Basically she was their English teacher or something like that. She used to do plays with them. Then all of a sudden she I guess she didn't show up one day to school. She just somebody who was like a substitute for her, right? So the substitute was like, here's a play that I want you to act. Here, I want this boy to act some stupid, act like a monkey or some shit. I don't know, basically. And the boy was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna, act like that. I'm a dignified, self-respecting African. You know what I'm saying? Something like that, right? They fired ass. The school fired ass. Why? I don't know, but they fired her. So the point is, and that's just constant. When we talk about Alton Maddox Jr., right? We're talking about a guy who they took away his law license. Why did they take away his law license? Because when they told him to break away from attorney-client privilege, right? So basically, attorney can't say what their client says in confidence, right? When they told him to do away with that, he refused, so they took away his license illegally. You're in somebody else's country, and somebody else is making sure not just that the lights are turned on, but somebody else is making sure that somebody's not shooting you on the streets, on the sidewalk. Somebody else is making sure of that. And the thing is this: if somebody else is making sure that somebody don't shoot Oni on the streets, right? If that somebody don't like Oni's getting shot. It's as simple as that. Now, when I go to Africa or when I go to Tanzania, we are looking out, like we're looking out for ourselves. We're looking out for each other. When I come here, the case that we all have to remember is Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer is trying to get voting rights for people in I can't remember, Mississippi maybe, I don't know, or Louisiana, one of the two, I don't know, right? She's trying to get some voting rights for our people. They arrest her. Okay? And it's not enough that they arrest her. Okay, they arrest her. Big deal. They arrest her and they put 2 black men in the cell with her. And they tell the black man to beat her up, and the black men do. Now, you got to understand how much is going on, how many layers there are. First off, she's getting arrested for trying to get voting rights, right? Which doesn't make any sense. But okay, fine. But second part is this: they arrest her, they put them in prison, and then they put men in a prison cell with women. That's not even something they should be doing, right? Not only that, but they somehow put her in a prison cell with 2 men, and these 2 men, and they urge these 2 men to beat up on a woman, and they do. The fact that they have that kind of influence, that kind of control over the well-being of you and yours, it's not like, why are you, what like if you're being pessimistic here, or people are being pessimistic here, I encourage that. We should, there's such a thing as the high ground or the low ground or whatever. There's such a thing as fighting hard or fighting smart or fighting whatever. There's such a thing as where the battle's taking place. And Machiavelli said this. He said, even more important than the soldiers is where the battle is taking place, like just the grounds in which it's fighting. That's the most important thing. You are in somebody else's nation, and that somebody else wants these black folk the way they are, like wants the worst of black people. Because of that, I say just hightail it, just move. But if you want to fight on the hard part, it's gonna be hard. And when you give up, or if you give up, that's it. You gave up. You gave your life to it. Personally, me, like I said, I'm trying to, like, I have a nice looking life already set up in Africa. They put it on the last few bricks right now. And that's what I encourage for all of our people. And just go and get yours.
I like what you're saying about Africa. I'm sorry, Bonner, real quick, because I'm actually going to throw it to you right now with something I'm about to say. Where Oni's people is from is the Caribbean, Jamaica. Where I'm from, where Buana is sitting or standing right now, is the Caribbean. Zuli, Caribbean, right? A bunch of us are from the black nations, quote unquote black nations, black leadership, black people. Do you know how bad it is in many of these Caribbean nations, man? I'll throw it to Buana. Let me see what Buana has to say to what I just said and what he wanted to add. Go ahead, Buana.
Oh, what I would say is this. What is Oni? You are a man with a certain amount of means, right? Sitting in America right now. You have the ability to do that. But what do you say to the people who financially may not have the capability to, or even the wherewithal to leave the United States of America and set up tent in an African nation? That's one. 2, the other problem is how we define African nation or even a black nation, because the territories that you sending them to, Tanzania, I think, was conquered by the British. So they still have Britishisms and schisms that still exist within the continent itself in African countries. So even if you escape from out of the United States, and I understand what you're saying, because you have a distance You are some measured distance away from interacting with your competitors on a daily basis. But even in the African context, you still have men, black men who look just like me and you, who think like the men who just left. They have the mindset. Many of them have the mindset of the men who just left in America. So what do you say in regards to that situation? Because even though you may leave one particular situation for greener pastures in Africa, I can say the Caribbean, in Africa, you may still find that black men like that still exist with that mindset still exists in the continent you're going to. Maybe that might not necessarily been your experience in the 3 months that you went there, but I'm sure, you're gonna find that. I hope you don't, but I'm sure you're gonna find that. So what do you say in regards to that scenario? Because you're not born into this purest African state, even if you're on the continent of Africa. So I just wanted to address that.
And Buana makes a good point. You're not going to Africa as the, how do I put this? As the, the regular, schmegular, degular African dude. You go in there with some affluence. You came from the States, you have whatever you have, and you're able to go there and kind of distance yourself from, from this stuff that we're talking about here with Neely Fuller. Like, we have to be honest about that, but only take it away.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, just to clarify, my means like I'm broke in the States. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have I definitely don't got money like the rest of y'all. So I'm broke in the States. The thing is, but that said, yeah, life is about, you could choose to navigate how you want. And the reality is this, as far as what if there's somebody with a mindset of like a dangerous mindset? I don't give a shit if a brother got a dangerous mindset if he don't have a gun. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a shit. If he doesn't have a gun, I do not care. The thing that you notice when you get to Tanzania was this. Ain't nobody, no, the only people who had guns were the people defending banks. Okay? Well, the people defending banks, I don't even think the police officers had guns per se. The people defending banks and maybe the military, that kind of stuff, very few people were capable of killing the next man, off of some bullshit. So because you don't have that illegal arms trade problem, right? It don't matter what the next man's thinking. You know what I mean? Like, I think I did hear one dude shouting about to another dude, like, "Oh man, I'll fight you," blah 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 blah. That's it. And I think I heard somebody say somebody killed somebody else, and I think it had to do with I think they used, I don't know, like a brick, I don't know, brick maybe, I don't know. But the point is, there's no random shooting. So as a man who's 6 foot tall, now I'm like 220 pounds. I don't give a shit if you if you coming at me with your fist. You know what I'm saying?
Only, just I don't mean to interrupt you, but just two things I wanted to address, just to clarify. Okay, when you say that you are relatively broke in the United States, let me contextualize this. $30,000 United States USD. If you make that in the world by world standards, you are considered upper class by world standards, not US standards. So if you make it more than $30,000 a year and you go into Africa, you are considered a wealthy individual. That's first of all. $30,000 a year. That's first. Second, when I talk about the context of the mindset, if you go to a country, might be a predominantly black country, but they have policies where they are antithetical to black people. Yeah, they anti-black. They antithetical to black people, and you have to exist in that society. Yes, you living in a black country, but the policies that you have to exist under gonna be anti to what you into. You know what I mean? A lot of the policies. So I just want that to be very clear when you going and packing up and saying, "C'est la vie to my problems here. I'm going to greener pastures in another space." But if that space has been colonized, the policies that you have to exist in gonna still have the mindset of the people you just left. I just really wanted to
Well,
contextualize it as you go.
well, let me say this: two things. One, all right, whatever it is that you say about the money situation, right? The reality is, a lot like as far as if that were the qualification for the means, a lot of black people qualify. So there's no exception to only qualifying. A lot of more black people are more qualified to live productive lives outside the country. The second part is this: you gotta go to the country to know the country. You know what I mean? But like an example is you talk about like for instance Koku mentioned Jamaica, right? In Jamaica, my father comes from Trenchtown, right? Worst area. Apparently, I think he used to play football with Bob Marley. Literally, right? Like Bob Marley was their neighbor, right? But uh, very dangerous, very bad area. But my cousin or his cousin is in St. Anne, I think the name is. Wealthy area, wealthy secluded area, right? The point is that you can you don't have it I don't want to trigger trigger I don't want to trigger Black Steel, but we have to start also like we don't discuss class enough in a sense, right? We don't discuss classism enough, and we don't discuss.
Message.
You said message. No. I'm going against class. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to like. All right. So actually, let's go into what they call the four classes like in traditional Marxist sense, right? There's the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, the lumpen sorry, I don't want to go to that one yet. The petit bourgeoisie, and the fourth one that people don't talk about is the lumpen proletariat. And the thing that people didn't like about Marxism, and I don't like Marxism, I don't like that stuff, right? But the thing people don't like about Marxism was that he puts the proletariat as a revolutionary class, right? He does not put the lumpen proletariat as a revolutionary class. The lumpen proletariat are the unemployed, the criminal, the prostitutes, and so on and so forth, right? They recognized, or this ideology recognized, if you're really trying to get a revolution popping, you focus on. Well, they said you focus on the proletariat. You do not focus on the lumpen proletariat. Now, a lot of people took issue with that, including the Black Panther Party, which thought, hey, a lot of black people are lumpen proletariat, so we should focus on lumpen proletariat. Well, but the point being is that you don't have to go among the lumpen proletariat, or you could just accept that the lumpen proletariat are going to differ from, let's say, if we're petty bourgeoisie, they're going to differ from the petty bourgeoisie. And for me, like me personally, I go and mingle and live among the lumpen proletariat. I don't really care, right? Personally, on a personal level, and that's how I could afford, to live in Africa, because I can afford to live around, a bunch of broke people. But I'm not going to hold broke people to the same standard I'd hold the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, right? And that's just reality. You know what I mean? But like, yes, if like I said, my cousin lives in St. Anne. That's a more well-to-do area. And then my father comes from Trenchtown, which was not a well-to-do area, right? That said, you can carve a life in Trenchtown if you wanted to, but you can also have a really safe life in Jamaica if you just navigate yourself around the St. Anne area. And that's just how life is. And the trouble is that a lot of black people, if we're really being honest, a lot of black people do not move. They do not they do not migrate. They do not explore their areas. They do not explore their options. And when you don't move around, when you don't so on and so forth, you are at the mercy of that environment. And sometimes you're in a bad environment. And but we as black people who have the freedom of movement, we do not have to go into the bad area. You can go to a poor area or lumpen proletariat area, whatever. You can go to a poor area and be perfectly safe around them. And that's the thing about when you talk about Africa, like Tanzania is actually I don't know, 10 times the size of the entire Caribbean. You know what I mean? So yeah, the Caribbean islands, the experience, or matter of fact, 100 times the size of the Caribbean islands, all put together, right? So yeah, our experiences in the our little tiny Caribbean islands of population of 1 million, right? Um, won't necessarily translate for this large, vast landmass where you could really isolate yourself, where you could really be in a certain area that's completely divorced from anything and everything. Like where I lived was just a really, like, it was cheap, like $120 a month, but it was a really good area, rooftop, this, that, so on and so forth. Really good area, and the people and the locals were really nice and friendly, and everybody knew each other, and everybody sort of so forth. It was a really good space, no weapons, no this, no that. You could get that easily, but you have to look and you have to move around.
In the chat, Trigger says, I think Bitter is thinking bigger, though, as to how we can expand the standard of living for all Black people. That's exactly it. You see, it's interesting. We have to move on for time's sake, but it's interesting. What Oni was saying at the end there is basically you can get away from your people, or some of your people at least. And that's a interesting thing, because
as Oni say, sorry for cutting you off, Koku. As Oni say, you have to live there, because even when him saying that, I'm listening to this, right, and I said, okay, first of all, it depends on what you want in life, how you trying to, because I could go experience the same thing Oni talking about in Andres, Koku, in Mango Key Andres right now, where my grandparents live. I could go experience that right now. But what happened when the light cut off 8 hours and I gotta wait because BEC and Batelco, there are some things that there's gonna be that is left out of the equation in his conversation that we could discuss, and it'll take too long of a time, and I will move on to the next point. But I'm listening to this and I'm processing, and what he says is very true. He said you have to live it first. And because I live some of the experiences of what he's talking about, I know the nuances that come with that kind of life that is not really going to be discussed in the short time frame we have right now. But I'll stop right there.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying. I'll just say this last thing before we move on. I understand what he's saying because I know it well. I mean, Juana's familiar with the general area that I'm from, right? If I was living out east or out west, I would have a different life. That's just how it is, right? So I understand what he's saying, but the thing I'm also going to put out that we won't discuss it though is it also sounds a lot like you're getting away from around your people too. I just want to point that out. Let's move on to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2.